The Yellowstone trip, I've wanted to go on that one for 3 years.
Yeah.
I've tried and scheduled that, and something's came up where it's fell apart.
Yeah.
So I haven't been able to go.
That
When's yours
stinks.
coming up?
December. I've got a while yet. Well, I say that. I don't. It'll be here before you know it.
It's fast approaching.
Yeah. I don't know when that happened. I was in high school a couple minutes ago. Now I'm not.
You are.
Yeah, I am. And I get paid to be there now, so that's an advantage. But now I have to be the responsible one, which is the disadvantage side of that. It's a lot less fun when you have to be the adult in the room.
Have you tried, like, skipping class?
No. No, I'm pretty sure they'd frown upon that.
You could try.
I could try it. The problem is, they would never know that I skipped class.
Just submit attendance and you're fine.
Except for all of the kids would know, and they would wander around the halls. And they'd cause problems, and they'd be like, where's your teacher? Nobody breaks up a party like a teacher. So they huddle outside of my room. Mm-hmm. So these kids were complaining. They were like, they won't let us in. So I walked out, and I just stood there. And everybody slowly walked away. It's terrible. That's the fun of being an adult, I guess.
How much different is high school as a teacher versus, like, being in it?
I still really like it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be there. But it's really good, but there's a lot of different challenges that, like, I didn't expect. So, like, I have students who don't have very good home lives, for example. And I became a teacher because I wanted to see kids succeed. But it's hard to figure out what drives a kid and what helps a kid. That's one reason that I became a teacher, was because I saw some friends who didn't have very good home lives that, you know, another parent took them in and encouraged them to help them, and that's what pushed them to even graduate in some cases. So, you know, being new to the school, I've got some kids that I don't really have relationships with, but you want the best for them, whether they're your kids or anybody else's kids. So from that side, it's kind of hard to see some of that go through and help them as best you can. You don't always know what to do.
And this is your first year back at Farmington.
Mm-hmm. Yep, this is my 8th year teaching, but first year back at Farmington, so.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I see a lot of the same names, and so I'm able to be like, oh, hey, is so-and-so related to you? Oh, yeah. They're my aunt or uncle. No,
right, well, you know everybody around here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, or everybody knows of us.
Right.
The Hinkabines, so there's enough to go around that way.
Yeah, they know somebody related to you, or you know somebody related to them.
Yeah, I saw a kid at the fair that I had never met even, and he's like, oh, hey, I was just out at your uncle's house. Oh, really? What are you doing? Oh, I had to pick up a four-wheeler. Saw your dad. Went to go see the elk. That's cool. So, you just never know.
Right. Small towns.
Yep. That's what you get. Gotta love them.
What else is different about teaching than what do you teach?
I teach agriculture.
So what does your day look like?
So, the great thing about being a teacher is it's vastly different every day. So, I have 6 different classes. One of those is a seminar class. We used to have that one, where you try and help guide kids into their future.
Yeah, those are like your kids for all 4 years of high school.
Yep, so I get those kids all 4 years, which has been really good because they're freshmen this year. And so we get to start off on a clean slate and all that fun stuff. So I've got that in the middle of the day, and then I talk about animals for the first 2 hours, and then I jump into power and technology, so that's anywhere from concrete to plumbing to electrical to welding. And then I have seminar, and then I go teach Ag Science 1, which is basically a hodgepodge of everything, animals, plants, shop work, that kind of stuff. And then I go back to power and technology, so it's a nice mixture, get a little bit of everything.
Now, in that class, when we were in high school, I wasn't in ag. I took a couple of those classes, but not. There was like some people though that did like really big projects.
Yeah. So in the construction classes, you can build different projects. While I've been teaching in my different shops, I've had several 8x5 trailers. Had some kids build some headache racks for the back of their pickup trucks. Just projects that kids want to do. Bale rings, that's always a big popular one. So it kind of gives the kids a freedom to build what they want to build and they got to do it from scratch most of the time, so they have to plan it out. Like the headache racks, they were pretty cool. Kids came in one day, said, "Hey, we want to build these for our trucks," and I said, "Okay, well, let's get a plan together." So they drafted the plan and sorted it out and came up with the materials list and what all they needed and step-by-step instructions, and it's pretty cool to let kids go like that. So
that's really cool because, I mean, they're applying their education to, I mean, actual action.
Right.
And then they're applying that action into their everyday life. They're modifying their vehicle, or they're putting something on their property that they'll use with their animals. Or So like they're creating something from nothing.
Right. And it's cool because, like, for example, I have a bench at my mom's house that I saw this on Pinterest, because I love to Pinterest. Saw this on Pinterest, and I took it into my shop kids, and I said, "Hey, guys, I want this bench built." And they got right to it, and it's neat because everybody thinks differently. And so whereas the way I would have planned it was totally different from the way the kids planned it. But it turned out fantastic. And actually, it turned out so great that people saw it, and we ended up selling, I think, 10 different benches that year of that same one. So there's just, and that was all kid-driven. All I did was show them a picture and said, you know, I want this. And they went so far as to measure people's legs to see how tall the bench should be. I mean, you know, they went through all that work, and so it's neat to let them apply themselves in a way that typically they don't get to.
That is, and that was something that was always different in the high school about those classes versus other ones. When you start learning like those types of skills, you actually got real life experience in using them before you actually left, you know, the school.
Yep.
There's not many things like that in high school, even with us. They kind of started taking them away when we were there. I mean, they got rid of like wood shop, you know, like I had it a couple years and then it was gone, you know, non-existent anymore. And the amount of people that made stuff in there was like, there was some really, really cool stuff.
Yep.
Ag, we had computer science that people were building things in. There was a lot of stuff that just kind of all died, but it was real hands-on students creating things, whether it be hard items or software or, you know, whatever. But yeah, those things they seem to be fading out in the school system.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's just kind of tricky in a school setting because you're responsible for all those kids. So you've got to make sure that when I've got a kid out there, they've got to know what they're doing. Otherwise, they lose an arm or a leg or a finger, and that's no fun for anybody.
And how come you can't tell them, "Stop crying, you have another one"? You know what I mean?
You know, parents would frown upon that. You know, think about it. Your kid comes home, one arm less than what he had whenever he walked out the door. Maybe a little touchy
Tell them
subject.
the same thing. "Stop crying, he has another one."
Right,
No.
right. Nah, it doesn't quite work like that.
Yeah.
But that's some of it. A lot of it's a liability anymore. But
that sucks. That the insurance world in the Sue Happy place has limited those experiences. It's hard to get your feet wet. Elsewhere, you know.
Right.
You're not going to go get a welding job with no experience to try it out, but you could try welding in high school and, I really enjoy doing this. And even if you never take a career in it, just the ability of, I've developed a skill, I can do it if I need to or want to, you know.
Yep.
And I think a lot of stuff is just another art form that people get. It's just a little more dangerous than paints and canvases.
Yep, pretty
much. So they
much.
want to, you know, just pull the plug on it.
Yeah, but it's like anything. I mean, as long as you know how to do it and you use it correctly, that's the major thing. Most injuries happen not because somebody didn't know how to use it, but because they got too comfortable with it and stopped using some of the safety features to it. Yeah. You know, I watched nobody in my class, but I watched my father-in-law weld the other day in sneakers and shorts. And then he got burnt. And that's what happens, because we get to our own house and we get comfortable, and, you know, that's how people get hurt, is by letting some of those safety features slide.
Letting your guard down a little bit.
Right. Where in reality, yeah, sometimes they're a little bit more pain in the butt or work to do, but they do save you. So that's why those are there. But
what made you want to be an agriculture teacher?
Well, I always wanted to be a teacher, and I had a really hard time choosing between history or ag. And ultimately, I decided agriculture because it doesn't matter what you want to do. Whenever you grow up and get big, you're going to use agriculture at some point in time in your life. What I teach in my classroom is stuff that anybody can use. Doesn't matter if they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or anything. At some point in time, they're going to have a garden or they're going to have grass. At some point in time, they're probably going to have a pet. Or, you know, they could have 400 cows. It
They
just kind of all
eat.
depends.
Most
right.
of the people
and they eat. And that's one of the things in agriculture now is we have so many misconceptions in agriculture about what goes into your food and why it goes into your food because people are so far removed from the farm. You know, it used to be farmers never had to justify what they did because everybody knew why they did it. Everybody knew why cattle got shots, because they got sick. Same reason we give kids shots. But now people don't understand that because they haven't been on a working farm and those things. And so that's our major push right now. And I want my students, maybe they never be in farming. That's okay. But I want them to be informed citizens. I want them to know what's happening. I want them to know what goes in their food and why that happens. You know, there's a lot of marketing techniques that are used now that are just hot air, basically. Some of these marketing techniques are slapping wet on a water bottle and selling you wet water for $4 when you could buy it for 50 cents anywhere else. But since it's got the sticker wet water on it, you pay more for it. And so that's how some of our food products are, but people don't realize that. So that's what agriculture's everywhere, and everybody needs to know about it, and everybody benefits from it, whether it doesn't matter what you do.
What? Now, your family has a history of agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
So the family farm that I grew up on, my grandparents started in 1948, and so we've always had cattle on it and horses. My dad then started raising elk because he thought they were pretty cool, so we diversified with that a little bit. When I was younger, we did some 4-H projects with sheep, so we got to check them out too. But we've had livestock all our lives. I guess you could say we do it the old-fashioned way. We aren't a big, for lack of a better term, a factory farm. We've got 100 cows. We've got 50 elk that we raise. And a lot of that goes back to us and our family. That's what we eat. So we are making sure that what we put into it is quality stuff. And I don't know, I just always loved it. My sisters used to get so mad at me because they'd have to be inside and cleaning, and I would be up at 6 and gone with Dad, and so I never had to do as much of that stuff. But I always liked the outdoors. I always liked the animals. I always liked being out there and working and being in the open and checking that stuff out. So
yeah, me too. I love the outdoors and did that. I didn't grow up on a farm or anything. You already knew that, but yeah. I've always found it fascinating and kind of have surrounded myself around people that do that stuff. Planted gardens the last few years, and that's actually, I got some. This is like a little permaculture instant garden bed thing with leaves I composted from last year. I just threw down.
That's cool.
So I took some of my finished compost and then cardboard on top of that as like a weed barrier, and then dry leaves. I still had some stored that weren't ready to add to the compost. So then that's like a top layer of organic material to settle in. Mm-hmm. And literally there's like no weeds. The cardboard worked as an instant weed barrier for that. And I put compost below that. The worms came up, they started eating the compost, and then they're going through the cardboard and eating like the top layer of leaves. And then I just picked up a couple tomato plants at the farmer's market one Saturday. And I just put a hole in the cardboard and put them down in there. I've watered them twice. That's all I've done. I didn't even stake them. I'm just letting them grow.
Yeah.
I have the community garden spot, which is where I really tried this year to put my garden. I have 3 beds over there. And so that's where I planted most of the stuff. And these 2, I never made it over there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, well, can I plant them here? Let's do this right here. And so I knew of this bed design.
Yeah.
So I just tried it, and it's actually working really good. That one did not flower at all.
Yeah.
There's not a single flower or a single tomato. This one is straight killing it.
Yeah, it's got a lot of tomatoes on it.
Yeah. A couple will be ready soon. And then I have another plant growing back there. And that one actually came out of the compost bin. I think that's a cantaloupe or squash or something that I threw away.
Mm-hmm. And
then some of the seeds just started sprouting. So I just picked them before I mixed it one day. I just picked a couple of them and put them over here. And one of them took. So
that's cool.
So literally it's no effort. Just I don't know.
Yeah, plants are cool like that.
Yeah, this nature is supposed to grow. So let's just try to give it a little bit of stuff to grow in and see what happens. And it's working out really well.
Yep, pretty much. We've got some flowers that I went and bought. I'm terrible about remembering to water them. So I remember to water them when they start to turn brown. And then I water them and they look really great for a while. And then they start to turn brown again. So Yeah, I like those plants. Hard to kill.
Well, that's what these like. I've watered them twice, and then I haven't done anything else with them, and they just keep growing. And I'm just like, huh, that's great. I can't believe there's any progress is success for me. I just stand back and sip my coffee and check them in the morning, let the dog out, and I'm like, wow, they're still growing. That's fantastic.
You're even gonna have tomatoes soon. Right?
Yeah, I had to pick one of them because a bug got it and ate it, but everything else has been fine.
That's good.
I want to talk about your new business venture.
Okay. Yeah, so I really like to cook, and I like to try new things, and that's just kind of what I do for my stress relief. I always say find something fun, gardening. And we've already established I don't remember to water, so gardening was kind of out for me. But I don't know, I just like to piddle in the kitchen and try new stuff, and so this year I got into making jelly, canning stuff, which was new for me, but it was fun. I really enjoyed it. And so we ended up, so my mom always cooked for us. She's a fantastic cook. She was not maybe a health cook. She was more of a classic comfort food person. And so that's who I am when I cook. And if you look at a lot of the stuff, it's mostly sweet stuff. And we didn't need to eat all that at our house. And so my husband said one day, maybe I think about selling this and letting other people enjoy some of these things. And so I thought, well, that's a pretty good idea. And I thought on it for a while and decided to give it a go. So
what do you sell?
What I did. So I've got my 2 jellies. I've got a peach jelly and a strawberry jelly right now that I sell. And then I'm big on desserts, like desserts. And so I sell a lot of those. Cinnamon rolls are my favorite. What I do is actually I make a big batch and then I freeze them, and that's what I've always done for many, many years. And then I put them in my freezer, and then whenever I want some good cinnamon rolls, that's what I whip out and heat in the oven. And so I thought, well, if I was a person who didn't have enough time to cook, that would be a pretty, useful thing. So I sell those along with some cakes and desserts that if people want, they can get a hold of me and contact me and get. So it's just something that's made in a real kitchen that doesn't have preservatives, that it's real food. And so that's what I wanted to kind of share and make comfort food, I guess, of food that you loved eating whenever you went to your grandma's house or that your mom used to make. So that's kind of what got it started, and I don't know, just enjoy doing it, and so I'll just keep doing it until either nobody wants to buy it or I get too large to fit in a kitchen. So
it's really cool, because what you're talking about is something that I think a lot of people can identify with, is a certain type of food from like your childhood, or making certain foods, or like with agriculture and living on a farm. I'm sure a lot of the stuff was made like from scratch, from items that were produced there or grown, on the property. And so, I love gardening and growing vegetables and then like making meals with them. And it's just like, I made this, everything here is water and sunlight, and I just helped convert that,
right.
And so it is really interesting, I think, and adds something to the food when it has a personal touch. I don't know, it isn't my saying, but, made with love.
Right.
And I think food just tastes a little bit different when it's made that way rather than like at a factory type.
Right. Yeah, a lot of time goes into it and a lot of effort, and it's just, I think you're right. I think it tastes better. It's like I said, it's real food. The ingredients that I use are quality ingredients. I don't take shortcuts. I went and I bought some strawberries and they weren't to my liking, so I trashed them. I didn't put them in jelly for somebody else to eat, because it's the same concept as raising our beef. That's what I'm feeding my family too. That's what I give to my friends. That's what I give to my family. And if I'm not going to eat it, I'm not going to put it in somebody else's food.
Right.
So it's a little bit different. Some businesses really have to worry about the bottom line,
or the short success.
Right, or the short success, and that's not what I'm in for. I'm not here to make lots of money or anything like that. Mostly I'm breaking even for doing something that I love. So it's kind of a win-win for me. But
a hobby, a little side hustle.
A little side job. And it gives me an excuse to cook. We go on several diets, probably like everybody else. And my husband went on a carb-free diet, and that almost killed me. Not because I didn't get to eat carbs, but because I couldn't make anything. I've got too much of my dad in me. He hates to see food go to waste, and I'm the same way. So it pains me to see that go to waste. And so I'd much rather have somebody who, is looking for some quality cake or dessert, or is having a backyard barbecue and needs something to make that, than me just make it and it sit and not go to.
Yeah, so when did you decide to start this?
About a month or two ago. So I've tossed this around for a long time, and I make a lot of stuff for my family, I guess. We have a lot of barbecues and stuff, and I found that over the years, the list of what I'm supposed to bring keeps getting longer, which is okay. It's fine by me. But I thought, well, why not share it with everybody else too? And they were some of the first people who commented, was my sister Jessica, and she said, I will take a whole sheet cake. And she's a professional chef. And so I guess if it's got her approval, that's pretty good. She went to school for it and everything. So, but yeah, I thought, well, I might as well share it out and let other people have that option. I know what it's like to be busy. I traveled back and forth to Jackson for the past 3 years. And so there were a lot of times I wanted something good, but maybe didn't have the time to put into it. And so this kind of gives that option out there. So
you can have good food in your freezer ready to go,
right.
Mm-hmm. Or that little bit of sweet tooth, and you don't have to go do like something filled with a bunch of,
right.
Whoever and whatever,
right.
And next thing you know, it seems like everything's being recalled right now. Right. And it wasn't from the farm, or was part of the distribution or whatever. Right. And so I'm all for, buying and shopping local, and I always have. And I think it just creates I think the economics of it are a lot better, mm-hmm. because you're benefiting your local community. There's less waste that's actually produced because you're not shipping anything. So you don't have to box it and make sure it stacks well and then strap that and make sure that ships well from China and all that other craziness. So it cuts down on the packaging and the ordering, and again, it puts you back in connection with the people that are making your food, mm-hmm. because it's so crazy. Like, if people hire a roofer or a plumber or whatever, they want to know like recommendations, and they want to do a background check, or mm-hmm. Whatever. They want everything about you. But you just go to the store and just buy food, right? And then you're like, no, I don't even know where it comes from, or who makes it, right. or what part of the animal this is, mm-hmm. or any of the process that went into this. And I think that when you buy local, you get to meet the people that made the stuff. You get to hear about the product or the work that went into it, and I think it's just better to taste and share.
Yeah, and, that's the thing, and it almost sounds corny to say that it was made with love, or that, my family eats it too. You see that advertised all the time on big corporations and things, but the thing is, I put more care into the food that I send out than what, I put into my own food, because I want it to look good, and I want people to really enjoy it, and that's kind of my satisfaction. I like feeding people, I like helping people, and I want them to enjoy what I send out. So I don't cut corners, like the strawberries. I don't cut corners. If I didn't like them, then they're gone. I'm not going to put them in my food. And so, that's kind of the joy of it, is watching people eat it, or, watching people enjoy your food, or when you bring brownies out to a friend's house and they're just gone and all the kids have eaten them. And that's what I like. That's why I do it. It's not to make a buck or any of that stuff. It's just to make people happy.
Yeah, food is something that can bring people together like mm-hmm. really nothing else can.
Right.
Let's talk, I'm interested in the business side of it, and since it's so fresh, I don't think people tell their stories early enough when they do something. And that's one thing with this and this podcast. I'm filming this with the phone and a back porch, like nothing, just here's what I have and let's get started with it, and it's going to get better and evolve with time and all of that. And I'm also filming and recording some like behind the scenes stuff of learning all of this, and one day it might be put together like, okay, here was the struggles, right. Here were the difficulties of it, or here was my reaction when this took place. but people don't capture those moments, and then they try to recite them 10 or 20 years later, or
Mm-hmm.
even 5 years, and it's like you forget what a startup is,
Right.
or you've told the story so many times that now you really remember the story rather than what it really was. And when I got your flyer that you messaged me, I was like, this fits perfect with what I want to do here. So I would like to hear about like the decision process of making what you have a passion for and turning it into a business. How did it feel to like think about it? How did it feel to like tell the first person or make that decision, and then like to tell friends and family, and then finally like when you made it public? I've done that a couple of times, and I know what that's like, but a lot of people don't.
Right.
So what was that like for you?
Well, like I said, my husband was kind of the one who came up with that idea, and I don't know. I don't really like new scary things. I like everybody else. I like what I'm comfortable with. And you know, to be quite honest, if I could make food and give it away, I would. But I can't afford to, so I've got to sell it. And that's kind of where it lies. So I thought on that for a long time, and then I actually got into this strawberry jam making and peach making, and we ended up having way more than what I could ever dream of eating. And so I kind of passed it out to several family and friends, and Luke brought it up again and said something about it. So
was the jam the first?
So I had made a lot of baked goods. I get into these grooves, I guess you could say. So last year it was bread. I made a lot of bread. I made artisan bread. I made French loaves. I made, you know, the cinnamon rolls. I was cooking anything I could cook with yeast. I pretty well made, except for wine, of course. And so I got on that kick for a while. And I've always enjoyed making desserts. Ever since I was little, I can remember being at Dad's house and, you know, not knowing what to do on a Saturday. And so I'll make some cookies. And I don't know. I always liked my time in the kitchen. So, and I like trying new things where I'm comfortable, I guess. So the kitchen is a place where I'm comfortable, because if you screw up, you throw it away and you move on with your life. It's not a big deal. So I started with the strawberry jam, and again, it was kind of a Pinterest thing, and that's a grandma thing, I guess. My grandma used to make the best strawberry jam of anybody out there. No offense to any of the other grandmas, but for us, it was the best jam we ever had. And I can remember being little and fighting over it. And I remember when she passed away, we still had some, and it was like a treasure. You coveted it. You didn't get it out when other people were there. You know, you'd sneak it to the fridge at night and get your little piece of toast and put it on there because you knew it was coming to an end. So that's something that my whole family, my dad, my mom, my two sisters, that's what we really enjoyed. And that is kind of a connection, I guess you could say, with her. So when I saw that, I thought, I'm going to give that a whirl. So I made the strawberry jam and ended up with a bunch of it and gave it away, and my family really enjoyed it. You know, they said that it tasted just like Grandma's, which is the best compliment I could have gotten. And so, anyways, gave several of those away and then started with the business, and I was trying to think of what all I could sell. And there are strict guidelines to, of course, what you can sell out of your house and what you can't. And I'm not an FDA-approved kitchen, but I'm a clean kitchen. My mom's a cleaner, and I've always, you know, kind of followed in that, made sure everything was clean and tidy and organized. And the older I get, the more OCD I get, so the better it gets, I guess. But so what I could sell and what I couldn't sell was kind of out there. I tried some salsa, but you're not allowed to sell salsa and those things. So I was kind of going through the list of things that I like, and I don't know if anybody else is like this, but when I get put on the spot, my brain goes dead. So I'm like, well, the only thing I have to sell is jelly. That's it. That's all anyone will ever want. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, I do make bread. Well, I do make the cinnamon rolls, and kind of those things tossed around. And so I was able to add quite a few more. And I remember I sent it out to my family and said, hey guys, thinking about starting this business. What do you think? Here are the things I was thinking about selling. You know, would they work? And nobody messaged me back except for my dad with, yes, that's a good idea. Everyone messaged me back with orders already. So I had assumed that was a good sign. And
hey, what do you guys say? I'll take two.
Right. Like, that's pretty much what had happened.
They skipped the yes.
Yes, they skipped the yes, went right past that. And I asked for name suggestions. They went right past that and just went straight to the ordering. So I went ahead and thought, why not give it a whirl? You know, what do you have to lose? All the food stays good, so if nobody wants it, I'll just eat 30 jars of strawberry jam at some point in time. Or somebody will get a lot of Christmas gifts full of jam. I don't know. But so that was kind of the decision process, I guess, getting that started to go from there.
Okay. You brought the strawberry jam today, and I actually tried that inside. I didn't want to be eating and smacking and stuff into the microphone here. It is absolutely delicious. It was fantastic. I go down to the farmer's market, try to go on Saturdays as much as I can and buy local. And then we are lucky to have the 2 Mennonite stores here that sell locally or fairly locally produced. The one out on Old Fredericktown is raised or harvested right there. And so we do have some local food, and I try to shop there and go there and get some stuff. And yours is very good, and I like the little jars.
Thank you.
I like the decoration the texture. And I think the mason jars, the glass jars, just add a little something.
Yeah, they add some character to them.
They really do.
So I really like those. I ran out of labels, so you got chicken scratch on the top of your lids, but hopefully you can read it.
I think it makes it taste better.
Good. I'm glad. I had a high school student come over, and he was looking at my desk. I was trying to decide what I needed to order, and I said, "Hey, what did you mean by this?" And he goes, "That's not my writing, but this one might be." And I said, "No, that's my writing." And he goes, "Yours is as bad as mine." So it's not the prettiest handwriting, but
it's okay.
As long as you can read it.
Well, I can tell one's strawberry. It's the red one.
Yeah, that helps. The color helps for sure.
Tell me about the other one, the secret jam. That's not for sale, but I was lucky enough to get a jar.
Yes. Good friends of 10 years or older get a jar of jam. But that is grape jam. And so the grape jam's kind of it's another thing that kind of links me, I guess, to my family and the farm. The older we get, it seems like, for me anyways, the less time I have to do some of those things that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. So one of those things, of course, is being out on the farm. And we live on a farm, on Luke's family farm, and it's fantastic, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. But there's just something about home. And so my grandma's house still has the grapevines, and I can remember being very little, and we used to spend a lot of time at my grandma's house, and we were very little, and we'd help her pick grapes and all that stuff. And it would be the hottest day you could ever imagine in August, and she would give us grape juice, and the grape juice was near boiling because it came right off the stove. And it was the greatest thing ever, even though it was 180 degrees outside, and here you were drinking a hot beverage. Her grape juice was just the greatest thing ever, and so the strawberry jam worked out really well, and I thought, I want to try the grape. And we don't raise strawberries, so I actually got that at the produce, Crystal and Rich's Produce. They always have good quality stuff.
Yeah, I just go there frequently, a couple times a week.
Yeah. Yep. And so that's where I got my strawberries, but I wanted to do the grapes from family, like Grandma used to. And so I wrangled my dad into helping me go out there and pick grapes for about an hour. And
so where'd you pick the grapes at?
This is at my grandma's house.
So you went to your grandma's house and then picked off of the same grapevines?
Grapevines that she used, and actually, as I was talking with my dad, the same grapevines that they had. So they've been around for a while, and I was talking to my stepmom, and she said, "Oh yeah, people used to grow grapes. They're probably Concord grapes," and she knew it all because that was just what was common back then. And so they're the same grapevines that my dad ate off when he was a kid, and so it's kind of got that connection to pass by. And so we ended up with way more than what I ever thought we would have because nobody has picked those. My grandma passed away years ago, and nobody's really picked them since. And so I didn't think that they'd go very well, but again, a plant, so they're pretty resilient. So I thought, well, if nothing else, we'll get them off this year and trim them up, and they'll be really nice next year. And then we ended up with 5 buckets of,
of grapes?
5-gallon buckets of grapes. And so we had way more than what I could ever anticipate. And that's one of the things about this business is there's been several times where I thought, boy, I think I might be in over my head on this one. And when I walked in the house with those 3 buckets, that's what went through my head. I may be over my head on this one. But I gave it a whirl, and so I decided to, you got to wash them and pick them off the vines and sort through them and make sure which ones are good quality and which ones are not. So I did all that, and then, like I said, jam's fairly new to me, so it was a learning process. So I put my sugar in before I put my pectin in, which is what thickens it. So that batch of what was supposed to be jelly turned into grape juice, and it was about 5 cups of juice and 7 cups of sugar. So it was super sweet, more like hummingbird feed. But
There's a hummingbird too flying around our head.
Well, I had plenty of grapes, so I was able to put a lot more grape juice in there, so it turned out pretty well. And then 2 batches of grape jelly. So it's kind of neat to go back and, just kind of, it's weird how it connects a family in different ways. So, my parents are divorced, and Mom has my grandma's recipes, I think, anyways. And so I called her, and she said, I don't think I have that one, but your Aunt Kay has it. So then I had to call Aunt Kay, and I was able to sit there and talk to her for about 30, 45 minutes about, that's how she used to spend time with my grandma, was going down there and making jelly. So we got to talking about that, and, got to relive some of those times and talk about the people that we love. So it was kind of neat all in all.
That's so cool that, starting this business and trying to do it from, like the way your family did it, or using family recipes and that kind of stuff has allowed you to, like, connect.
Yes.
With those people more. Like, you usually don't go and sit down with 45 minutes with your aunt and just talk about making jelly with your grandma, or the connections you have, and then, she'll remember a certain time and tell her stories, or those things don't happen. That's one of the things I want to do with this, is have conversations with people and friends, because I think everybody's, like, doing something that's worth talking about. Everybody has a story worth telling, and I want to make sure that I put aside the time and that I can communicate and talk with them. And then if there's any way that I can help or bring some attention to that, or to whatever they're trying to do, like with your kitchen, or Charlie, who was actually mowing the lawn when you showed up. Charlie came over when I first did, like, all the tests, so there's those videos I think are up, and it's just me and him just, like, testing and stuff, because I didn't even know what happened when I hit record. It's like, okay, let's plug this in, but might as well have a conversation and see what happened.
Right.
The audio timed out. I didn't realize that we were going to have a 20-minute limit. The camera has a 30-minute limit, so there was a bunch of workarounds. So it was really fun, like, kind of learning that. And then, Charlie was back here today, and, okay, now we're ready. And I fixed the problem with the video and the audio, and I actually have a new device coming, so I've learned a complete different thing and bought another device, and it's on its way to make this easier for me. But I can sit down for, 30 minutes or an hour and have a conversation with you and catch up and talk, more deeply about some of the things that we haven't got to, because just friendship doesn't happen. We're talking about what we're doing, what we're having for dinner, who's going where, and, who's riding with who, or whatever else the case may be. But you don't talk about making jam all the time.
No, not very often.
Or from your grandma's recipe and stuff like that. What were some of, like, the hurdles maybe that you weren't expecting, or what have you ran into?
So the strawberry was a big deal for me, because I had planned on making a batch of strawberries, and it actually rained that day. And not thinking, I left the strawberries in the plastic bag on my countertop, thinking that would be okay. And it wasn't. They all ended up being moldy. So that was a big thing. I should have known that. It's one of those things where you're like, yeah, that was stupid. You should have known that. But it's just things like that that throw you off. And the grapes, coming home with all that. I had never really done that. Maybe when I was little, I helped Grandma do it much, but, whenever you're little, you have a short attention span, and they just assume you get out of the kitchen and not be a nuisance. And so I didn't realize that it was going to take me 5 hours to make 2 things of jelly and 1 thing of grape juice. I had no idea it was going to take that long. And so time's kind of been a thing, figuring out how to work that and go from there. That's probably been the biggest hurdle. It's kind of scary to throw your product out there, and there's people that like things a certain way and may not like it the old-fashioned way or the way that I do it, and so that's kind of scary to have that out there and those recipes, because they are kind of near and dear to your heart. That's what my family eats. and we enjoy that. And so from that side of things, it's stressful, I guess you might say, or it takes some time to get used to, at least.
Of the time and managing all that.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's really tough, and I've always been interested in like artist and that type of mindset and personality. And I guess it was probably finally like last year, it kind of clicked with me that business and different ideas, that's kind of like my art form. Is I like to think about these things. I like to be creative, and that's the way that I'm creative. And with this, it's the same thing. Is, man, I kind of exposed myself. I kind of made myself vulnerable. I put my ideas out there to be tested. I put my effort out there to be judged and tested and compared. I put, part of myself kind of out there for other people's opinion. And you're doing it hoping to help them or better them somehow. Right. And then if they don't like it, whatever your product is, whether it's like a podcast and you're like, I'm never coming on this thing again, that was stupid, or like, that jam's terrible, I'm never eating any more of it. It's like, man, that kind of hurts, you know?
Yeah, it does, because it is your ideas. And
it's it's a piece of you that, and I think with normal jobs, even with teaching, you're up there and you're talking and stuff. And it is a kind of a part of you that goes out there, and you want the students to like you and listen to the lessons that you have, especially when you're trying to like prevent them from making mistakes that, or change behaviors or whatever. But it's not like, here, give me your opinion on this, and now you get to judge whether this is successful or not. Right.
And there is a little bit of that in teaching, and that's why I teach high school, I guess, is because we get into some really great conversations. And it amazes me how smart these kids are, and how driven a lot of them are. And it's kind of sad that on the news we see kids, boiling water on their friends, or whatever other, eating Tide Pods. And we kind of blanket statement people, and I think that that's a real issue we have in society, where if the people who were blanket stating these kids as just Tide Pod eaters would come in my class for an hour a day, they'd see the diversity there, the intelligence there, and the ideas there. And, the thing is, these are the kids that are going to be leading our future. These are the kids who are going to be coming up with the next great inventions, or, the technological advances that we have throughout all industries, not just agriculture, but all of them. And for me, it's sad as a society, because we need to be helping these kids and promoting these kids. And sometimes we don't do that. Sometimes we kind of do the opposite of that, and messing up or having mistakes. That's part of life. Moldy strawberries, that was a learning experience for me. I know what not to do next time, but you have to fail in order to succeed, I believe. And these kids are just, they have a lot more hard times than what we had, I guess. There were challenging times, but we didn't have Instagram and Snapchat and all these things to remind you of the stupid mistakes that you did when you were young, and these kids do. So they're a great bunch, and I'm really excited about what the future holds and what ideas they have, because I've had kids go off to be missionaries. I've had one kid go twice now. She's gone and given up, 2-3 months of her life to go help people out. And that's all we want, is people to pay attention to other people, to recognize the differences and the values in those, and try and help people.
Yeah, that's, and right now I just feel like the media companies, news and everything, they are a company that they get paid for attention. And so they are getting as much attention as they can, and they will say what sells. They will, their product that they push is not really like a hard product. So you can't touch it, you can't use it, you can't you can halfway make decisions off of it, but really there's no tangible value into that. So their only value is getting your attention.
Right.
And whether they make you upset or happy, it's still attention. And the fact that as far as you go on the internet, attention is equal, whether it's positive or negative. It doesn't matter. There is no bad attention on the internet, because the more people that are clicking it and seeing it, then basically you sell your stream to, advertisers that get to your audience. So it doesn't matter. Like,
right.
it really doesn't matter if you're getting bad or positive. And it's just going so fast that I think the bad stuff spreads so easy, and that's just human behavior. What was the old saying? If somebody has a bad experience, they tell 7 people, and if they have a good experience, they might tell 1.
Right.
So bad news travels faster than good news, and that's just human nature. And I think that these large media companies kind of figured that out and have used it.
Yeah, we had actually a media specialist come into our school and talk about the effect that it has on students. There are students who, if they post a Facebook photo, if they don't get 20 likes within the first hour, they'll take down the photo. And so we kind of looked at a little bit of a history of that, and that's one of the things they talked about, this Ebola virus. In the United States, it was pandalarium. I mean, everybody was freaking out. If you go to other countries where the news is not bought by commercials and advertisements, and whether it's figured into their tax dollars, they said, hey guys, we got this Ebola virus, here's the issue, here are the symptoms, if you have any of these, go see a doctor, completely treatable, you'll be fine. And in the United States, it was all over, it was everywhere.
You're gonna die, everybody's gonna die.
Everybody's gonna die, and there's no hope for society at all. It's the end of the world. And so it's just, that's a big thing, and I don't think we realize how much effect that it does have. And my biggest thing is I hate to see the negativity, I guess, that it's caused in the world. We don't always agree on everything, but we can get along. And I think that sometimes with the media, they're not only disagreeing with you, but saying you shouldn't, go along with this person because they don't agree with the same beliefs that you have.
Right, and I think
we've kind of turned each other against each other, and now it's, you don't believe the same as me, we can't be friends, and that's just not right.
Well, and and what I think is that the two people that sit here and might argue two different sides and this and that and rant and rave and go on and off about it, then they go to lunch after the shows. They're they're friends. They split a bottle of wine or crack a couple of beer, whatever. Like, they go out, they share some steaks, they bring, their spouses, the kids hang out on Sunday, occasionally. They're not best of friends.
Right.
But they're fine.
Yeah.
They don't actually feel that strongly, but it's their job to act that strongly.
Right.
And if these two people, just like in wrestling, that's all it is, you're just getting attention, and a feud gets a bigger attention than a friendship.
Right.
We simply just know that. And that's the way that it's always been. And I think that they just extort that and use it.
Yeah.
But I also think that as social media and things kind of take over, that it allows the opportunity for me to say, hey, I have a podcast on my back porch with a couple of microphones and video off my cell phone.
Right.
So let's talk about how the world really is. And we can do our own media and our own conversations and tell people about our days and do our own nightly news if you choose or whatever. But there'll be alternative sources. And there's always bumps. But I think that it can be a good thing as long as it is free and kind of given to the people. And I think that there's more and more people that are going to be doing podcasts or blogs or just communicating with their friends. Because if I can sit here and do advertisements, I was reading some things today, like how much some of the top podcasters make. And one of them that I listen to a lot is Joe Rogan. And he's, I don't know, like top 5 in the country, I think, with his podcast. 90 million views or something.
Yeah.
On either the podcast streaming, which is just the audio, and then YouTube. And YouTube, you make $7.60 per 1,000 views.
Wow.
That's the average on so $7.60 per 1,000 views. That's advertisement money that you get off YouTube. YouTube takes 45% of that. So they get their big fat cut.
Right.
That's a large percentage, which I mean they host the platform in which to post the video, but
But you're the one doing all the work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think 45% is a bit much. And then, like, the other advertisements, you get anywhere from, like, $20 up to $50 to run advertisements throughout your podcast.
Yeah.
And so, like, some of these people are estimating that Joe Rogan's making $50 to $100 million.
Wow.
Right? Total revenue, but then you got to pay YouTube and these other places. It's actually, like, iTunes is free to post to. But he's not making that kind of money. I know that projection is off, right?
Yeah.
I know the $7.60 is right. I know the 25 to 50, but there's no way this dude's making $100 million right a year. That doesn't that's not happening. Mm-hmm. And even if YouTube takes 45% of that, he's not making 55.
Right.
He's not making $55 million a year doing this because he has other jobs also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah,
you're not going to have other jobs,
right.
you know, with this. But even if he's only making 10% of that, that's $5 million a year. Mm-hmm. And yes, he's famous and he got in right at the end. And I'm not looking to make $5 million a year doing podcasting or anything.
Would be nice though.
Right? But if the top guy can make $5 million a year doing it,
right, then,
like, there's a bottom reachable level that's some kind of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know?
$7.60
per thousand.
Per thousand.
So you just got to, I think I have 2 views.
Hey, there we go.
So we are well on the way.
Yep.
You know?
It starts somewhere. That's the thing. It all has to start somewhere.
Right. So if this is a revenue stream for a lot of people, and, like, there's Instagram models and, like, these people that just work that use social media to generate revenue. Now, it's a lot of bad, or there's a lot of bad with it. I was just reading a thing while I was reading those podcasts about these Instagram models that use, like, the filters on Snapchat and Instagram, and it fixes a lot of what they think are imperfections. Women. I don't know. I don't understand. You're beautiful the way you are. Just be you.
That's
right?
Sweet. Mm-hmm.
Jesus. Like, stop.
Well, there's and I think it's that way with everything. You know, there's a lot of pressure out there. And looks is definitely one of those. But, I mean, we just talked about it. There's pressure starting your own business because you're worried what people think of your ideas. So, although they're not looking at you and saying, you know, I don't like the way your hair's cut or whatever, they are saying, I don't like your ideas, which is kind of the same thing. You know, it's hard not to care what people say. We say that over and over, don't worry about what other people think.
Right, yeah, no, you do.
It's human nature.
Especially when you're putting a piece of yourself out there.
Right,
You know, you want it to be received well and things. But, like, these people were talking about these Instagram models are getting plastic surgery to look like they look behind a Snapchat filter.
You know, I saw that, yeah.
Okay, that is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
That seems, I don't know.
Yeah, it seems crazy to me.
That
really.
seems like a far reach and like a downside of social media, if that's the expectation.
Right.
If anything, I know I've even, like, done things to be like, oh, that would be, I'm somewhere, like, you know, I hike a lot and I've been places and be like, that'd be a really cool picture to take.
Right.
You know, you kind of think about posting it to Instagram or sharing it and be like, man, this is a good one, you know?
Right.
I kind of want to see the response out of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I mean, I'm not a 15-year-old girl, so they probably care a little bit more than I do. But I do understand that. But I also think that if it's getting people to go out to places, and that was actually, I just read an article in a hiking magazine that talked about some of these places have gotten so popular because of how pretty they are with social media that actually they're overran now with visitors going to take selfies and pictures and their own Instagram feeds. But it's like people are outside.
Right.
They're out in the mountains at a secret lake in the middle of Colorado.
Right.
Build a better path. Like, let's go. Charge $1 to get there. This is not a problem. This is good.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry that there's foot traffic. Let's turn this into a business here. I don't know. You guys are talking to the wrong people.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if there's a guard check that's just like old and wants to retire and he's just, and get all these kids out of here. You know, it's like, no. Let's do this.
Right.
You know, let's make it a thing. So those things are good, and with anything that's new, you get some good and some bad, and I hope that it turns, and some of the bad stuff kind of goes away.
I think the bad stuff was kind of created by us.
As we grow up, as we become more mature with social media, I hope that we can drop some of the bullying.
But there's, and I don't know. I don't want to sound like one of those, corrupt. There's corruption everywhere type people. But I think that it's a society shift. I think that we've gotten a lot pickier and a lot more demanding as a society. And I think that we're seeing that on our younger generations. When we were kids, we grew up with TV and that's it. And there were supermodels on TV but now it's everywhere. You're constantly being compared to somebody else. That shirt doesn't look the same on you as it looks on this person, or, we're constantly comparing ourselves.
Or seeing the changes on, like, Photoshop.
Right, and we need to understand that those differences is what makes the world what it is. Well, if we all thought the same, there would be no advancements ever. We'd be stuck in the same spot. So we don't want people to look the same or act the same or think the same. We want people to have their own thoughts and welcome that, not crush them down, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of the pictures are fake.
Yeah, but people don't always understand that, though.
Like, that's just the bottom line. Like, a lot of the pictures are fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that that's not a real person, but there's some editing.
Mm-hmm.
Even if not, but the camera that we have on our phones and then the editing software that's in there built in, and you just swipe a little bit, find the one you like, and then that's it, and you look completely different.
Yeah.
It's too easy to be false.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. But
it's
that's
easy.
like you said, that's kind of the good with the bad.
So you see that affecting the high school kids significantly?
Oh, yes, we see that significantly. My major thing that I have to deal with right now is cell phones. And it's not from the side of they're constantly on it texting. They're constantly on it on a social media platform, or trying to use it negatively against maybe another student. Taking pictures of somebody down the hall or those types of things, and then using that to tear that person down. We see a lot of that. And I think it's kind of like you said, it's just kind of growing up and maturing. When we were kids, we didn't have that. And so it's hard to try and combat something that you don't really understand.
How do we apply the golden rule to that one?
Right. And it's hard because that's, I don't know. That's just kind of the shift that we're in right now. And it's almost cool to make fun of people, I guess, and the way I talk to my friends, or that I used to talk to my friends even in high school, is vastly different from where people talk to their friends now. Now it might be, hey, bitch, what's up? And back then, if I'd have said that, my friend Maddie probably would have punched me in the teeth. So, it's just a whole different shift as to our minds and how we treat people and how we think. And, it's not all meant to be derogatory and negative. Sometimes it's just a different phrase or language or whatever, but we definitely see that going through there. But we see a lot of positive things too. Now when I assign something, I'm able to give them several different platforms. Maybe they can make a Canva poster like I did on mine, or maybe they could create a Powtoons, which is a presentation type thing. They have a lot more ways of expressing themselves or even finding that information. So there is a lot of good with it, but there's a lot of bad too.
One of the things, like with podcasting, that I was just reading about is like debates and long form conversations.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan again does a lot of like 2.5, 3 hour long podcast with super, super smart people. He brings in leading experts in whatever the field is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, let's talk about this. What is this? What is this about? And then gives these people this platform to communicate and talk and educate on. There's a doctor, I don't remember her name. I want to say Rhonda Pat something. I'm going to mess it up. So, but she's incredibly intelligent, and I've watched 1 or 2 podcasts with her, and I follow her now on Twitter. And some of the stuff that she's working on is just incredible. Mm-hmm. And it's like this information's coming from somewhere that I probably would have never been in a position to receive it.
Right.
In my normal life, I never would have heard this information until, the news told me, or became common knowledge. But now I can kind of, figure like the insides of a certain industry from just knowing like one person in the industry and following them.
Right.
So that has like evolved, I think, our understanding of like our general knowledge and what we have, but they were talking about how long form discussions and topics or debates could replace or go into like classrooms and settings where you could play some of these conversations with these leading experts and communicate more directly with them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that anything being done now that you've seen?
Actually, I did use a podcast in my classroom today. It was Mike Rowe. He's got one on The Way I Heard It, I believe is what it's called. And we listened to one over John Deere and how, he saw a problem with the plow. It used to be made out of cast iron. A lot of people were having problems with them breaking. And he was actually a blacksmith at that time, so people would take their plows to him to get fixed, to get mended. And he happened to be at a sawmill one day fixing something and saw an old blade that had broken and thought, hey, I bet I could use this. And so he did. He used it and turned it into a plow. And, and so the kids got some podcasting exposure to that. TED Talks. I love TED Talks.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they are really, really awesome. And they give a lot of insight. So there is some of that being used. And then the cool thing is, at my old school, I had a class called Ag Communication. And that's kind of one of my passions, is getting the word of agriculture out, because there is so much misinformation out there. And I'm not saying we're a perfect industry, and I'm not saying that there's room for improvement, because there is with everything. But I don't like how people are being misinformed about how we raise our animals or what we do, or that we're trying to kill you with evil GMO foods. That's not the case at all, but people don't understand that, because we've done a poor job of educating people. And so anyways, in that class, I was able to allow the students to create their own blogs, and they blogged about different topics in agriculture. And so they had to research the pros and the cons, and they could take whatever stance they chose to take into that. But they were able to spread their word through their own message. And I've had some students do some really cool things. I had one do a Snapchat conversation where she was able to change her face to be two different people, and that was her kind of message to get across, and it was just really cool. And so there is some side from us teachers, we're not as advanced and as proficient in it as what the students are, but then they're able to turn around and use those tools to further their education as well.
Well, that's cool, and I think that you can't fight it, so you almost have to join it.
Right.
We can't fight our need and desire for technology.
Right.
That's been quite apparent. And so everything's going to have to integrate more in with interacting with technology, almost to interact with the person sitting across the room.
Right.
From you. You do things more now on computers than pen and paper. So, you're sitting across the room. Hey, would you email that to me?
Right.
Sure will. Or
Yep.
Dropbox it or AirDrop it, or whatever. And, then that's really cool because you can share notes. So there is a lot of benefits to it.
Oh, yeah.
There's some really cool things and stuff, but I'm really excited to see that, like the kids, you're talking about how they're not as, I guess, bad or as unhuman almost
Right.
that some people try to make them out.
Yeah.
That the teenagers are right now. And then the concerns with the social media is something that you have to. I mean, obviously I have Blaine. He's 5. He's not on any social media platforms.
Yeah.
Currently.
Give him time.
Yeah. He does like to watch like the YouTube videos of kids playing, which I limit that to only a couple of minutes a day.
Yeah.
And he watches those, and he asked me a couple weeks ago, he's like, Dad, can we do a YouTube channel? And I'm like, well, I am trying to figure out how to record some stuff.
Yeah.
So when you're older, and if that's something you really want to do, I will be able to like kind of walk you through it and guide you through, okay, here's how this works, here's how that works.
Right.
And because there's kids that I'm seeing, do you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is?
Mm-mm.
He's really cool. He's an entrepreneur, and he's like embracing of new technology, and he's really embracing entrepreneurship, and even for young kids. So and he's had like young kids like on his shows and things, but like that flip sneakers, or that sell backpacks, or that sell trading cards or whatever. And he's just talking about how with the internet and communication and social media, on the way that you can turn $10 into $100 in a week by flipping stuff on Facebook Marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
or eBay,
Yeah.
where you go buy it at Walmart at clearance and then sell it to somebody else somewhere else because it's not on clearance there and they're out of stock somewhere.
Right.
And yeah, so he does that. He's promoting, that young kids, now you have an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to work for yourself around, your sports practice and around
Right.
your homework in a few hours a week, and you can actually make pretty good money if you're smart.
Yeah.
And develop those skills before you reach adulthood, and then you're expected to go out and make your own money.
Right.
You can kind of ease into that,
Right.
younger.
Yeah, it's pretty neat what they're able to do. Most schools now are at a 1-to-1, so we actually give every kid a Chromebook, and they have that ability, and it's kind of nice because the school says, if you can use this, if there's educational value, use it. If hands-on shop work is what you need to do in your class, use that way. And so, I think our schools are very good at staying student-focused and trying to get kids to that level of whenever they grow up and get big, then they know how to use all these things and work through them. So it's really neat. We for FFA we always have these speakers come, and we had this guy come, and I can't remember his name, but he runs a company called Not Impossible, and so it's a really cool story. This guy, he went to this art show. And he absolutely loved the art that was produced. So he said, I got to meet this guy. So he goes to meet this guy. And this guy has the Stephen Hawking's disease. And so he got this, of course, after the art show was a benefit for this gentleman. And the guy went into the hospital. And, of course, he's super excited because he loved what this guy did and really wants him to succeed. And he's an engineer, or knew some engineers, had some background in that. And he was talking to the guy, and they were talking about, well, why don't you just get a Stephen Hawking machine, like they've got. And he said, well, I can't afford it. And he goes, I'll make you one. And he goes, then I realized that I had no idea how to do it. So he said, then I took on this philosophy. It's called commit and then figure out how to do it. And I think that that's a really cool mindset. It's so often it's kind of like this business, so worried about, well, we got to get the logistics down, and we got to figure this out, and we got to figure this out. Well, sometimes it just takes for you to say, okay, I'll do this. And you will find a way. If you want to find a way, you're going to find a way. And he was able to do it. And then there was a country where they were bombing their own people. And there is people that had lost arms. And he found a way to 3D print arms for people. And so, and he actually used, I think, a high school engineering program to help him figure some of that out. And there was a procedure in Mexico that was costing tons and tons and tons of money for kids couldn't walk, and so they had to use this walking machine. And those cost thousands of dollars. And he says, I'll build you one for cheaper than that. So he built it out of car parts so that if anything broke, they could just go to a car shop and say, hey, I need this part. He built it for them, and they're able to use it. And so it's stuff like that, that I don't know that we would have been able to do without this technology and the ease of being able to look stuff up or figure stuff out. So it's kind of a neat shift that it's taken us, but we've got to make sure we're responsible, I guess, with it, and teach our youth how to be responsible and things with it.
Yeah, we kind of spent a couple of decades there teaching everybody how to find one thing, be really good at that one thing, and then do that. And now we're going back to be a little more generalist, because when you're 20, that the job you have or the career or the degree or the interest may not actually even be around when you're 30.
Yeah.
And probably won't be around when you're 40.
Right.
So good luck.
Right.
And you need to be adaptable and change. I have a book that talks about America was built by a bunch of amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I was just at a bookstore this weekend. That's Friday.
Yeah.
So I was going to a camera shop actually to figure out and get educated about the issues I have with my camera, which I did, and that was successful. But this little place I was at too, and the next door was a bookshop, and then a record store, and all this stuff. I was like, wait, what is this street?
Right.
And so, yeah, that day took. I thought I was going to be gone for a couple of hours, and it turned into all day. But so I went up to this little bookstore, and it talked about George Washington ran and kind of founded America as a entrepreneur mindset, and talked about how that mindset in creating valuable resources out of unwanted resources. Kind of won the Civil War, or not Civil War, Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
And how a lot of stuff was kind of set up in that. And then there was another book that talked about how basically nobody knew really what they were doing, in the beginning.
Yeah.
But nobody was experts, and that's kind of why it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's kind of what we have now, is that we're just saying, listen, we don't know. And when you try to build a roadmap and you look into the future on exactly what steps you need to take and what plan and everything else, you can't see every intersection you're going to come to. So you have no idea if you need to make a right or a left or anything else. Even if you know where the destination is.
Right.
You don't know where each intersection is going to come at. You don't know where you're coming from, because if it's a 4-way stop and you came from the east, well, your left is different than the guy that came from the south. Even if you're going the same way. So you have to be flexible, and I think that you have to just kind of start and then be confident and have the skills to say, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I will figure it out.
Right.
And we have like the internet and these really great tools that allow us to do those things.
Yes.
You can go into something with no idea how to do it and fully confident I will achieve the result.
Right.
Because you can learn anything you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super cool. It's like the canning thing. My mother-in-law cans, and so she helped me quite a bit, but I got started because I was scrolling through Pinterest on my phone one day and decided to, hey, this looks interesting. Let me give this a whirl. And that's how most of my recipes started. The baking of bread. My mom used to make biscuits, but really nothing else. And so I just kind of figured out how to do it. And, there were mistakes there, and there was bread that didn't rise or whatever, but you roll on and you learn from it and you figure out what to do and what not to do. So,
and I think people are like, now the people are getting like these hobbies of doing things that it's like creating a more versatile individual.
Right.
It's almost more fulfilling, I think, when you have, your main income or your main job or whatever, but then you have a couple like little hobbies and you're able to make a little bit of money and do some different things and more of the passion projects. I don't know, it's just more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think so too.
Luckily technology does that.
Yep.
Let's go back to your business. Where would you like to take this thing? What's kind of your idea? I mean, you're only a couple months in, but where do you see it in in a year, a couple of years or whatever?
Well, to be honest, I'm just kind of taking it day by day to see kind of the response and what will happen. Someday, in the probably far, far future, I think it would be really great to do it for a living. But right now I love teaching and I'm happy where I'm at. So probably stay with that for many, many, many years. But, when I get old and retire and I need something to fill my days, I would love nothing more than to do that and passing that on someday, maybe to my kids or my nieces and nephews, and kind of go from there. My personality is I like to make people happy. That's who I am. That's who I've been as a person for years. So if I can do that through food, which is something that I love, then that's all that I'm trying to get accomplished here. So obviously I would like to gain in customers and go from there, but the major satisfaction or the major goal is just making people happy and providing something that makes their lives easier. I like to do it. My older sister doesn't. And so if I can provide food for her that makes her life easier, then why not? So that's kind of just taking it day by day.
Well, I think that's the best way. That's kind of what I'm doing with this podcast. Like, I don't know. There's been a lot of phone calls and like interest or people messaging me, hey, what are you doing with the podcast? What's it kind of about? Oh, hey, this person would be really cool, or I'd like to come by one day. And I have a few ideas for different ones that maybe like don't even involve me.
Right.
But I know that the other two people that I'd like to see together, I don't think that they have the interest in learning all of this stuff.
Right.
Now, they want to have the conversations, but they don't record it and share it. And I'm just like, okay, I'll do that part.
Right.
You guys have the conversations, and I'll record it and edit it and put it up. So there's a few of those that I'd like to do. And, again, just talk with different people that I find interesting and see, and who knows, maybe I can one day get some cool guests and be able to talk and share some information, and it creates some value to somebody.
Right. Yep. I think there's a lot of value, just in sharing your story. If you think about it as a society, that's what we love. You can look back on the Oxygen Channel and, the show Snapped. It's huge, and it's not a positive show, but it tells a background and it tells a story, and people like that. And I think that's something that's cool, and we don't, like you said, we don't always share our stories. We've been friends for 10 years, and I probably never even told you that Grandma had grapevines there. Right. So, there's stuff like that you don't always get to go back, that you kind of figure out what makes a person. When I was in college, I took that World War II trip we followed the Band of Brothers tour, and just hearing some of those soldiers' stories are fantastic. And there's a guy out there now who, most of that generation has passed away, sadly. And there's a guy out there who I heard was going to every World War II veteran that's still around and trying to capture their story, because it's remarkable what happened and what went through, and it's so vastly different. When we were over there in Paris, I remember we went to, of course, all the beaches of Normandy, and when we went over there, we also visited the American cemeteries, and there was a group of French people who came up, and they wanted to meet our soldiers, and it was the coolest thing I think I've ever seen, because we obviously didn't speak French, and they didn't speak American. So our tour guides kind of introduced what was going on and what these people wanted. And they lined up. We took 5 veterans with us, and they lined up to shake their hands and to hug them, and they were crying. And it was just, it was such a neat experience, because we've been so blessed here in the United States to not know what it's like to be invaded. Whereas, some of those people, they were half their lives over there between World War I and World War II. And so sometimes we don't realize the stories that people went through, or what they had to do to get where they are. And like you said, we see the end product, but we don't see the struggles maybe that it took people to get there, or what they had to do to reach their goals. And so it's neat to share those stories.
Yeah, it's something that I'm truly passionate about, and that I enjoy doing. And this allows me the opportunity to do that. And if one day I can make a little bit of money off of hanging out and talking with interesting people, whether it be my friends or people I don't even know, and whether I learn something new or dive in about something that I know really, really well, or debates or whatever, the fact that you can turn a conversation of an ordinary, everyday person and put some kind of monetary value to it by just telling their stories, something that I'm really interested in and looking forward to. So
it's very cool.
Well, I think that's everything.
Okay. For
today. I appreciate you coming by. Thank you for the jam.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for liking it and trying it.
Yes. So if anybody would like to try any of your stuff or see what you have available.
So I have a Facebook page I created for it that I could kind of keep up to date. That's one thing I learned. Always have somebody else read it, because I had wrote on there the cakes were, $6 a piece or whatever it was. And to me that made perfect sense. And my sister said, but what if I want the whole sheet cake? And I said, well, that is the whole cake price. And when I went back and read it, it made more sense that I could understand where she took that from. But anyway, so the updates, if I add anything new, anything like that, is on Facebook. And I try to take some pictures of other stuff that I cook. Of course, can't sell everything. But like I said, I enjoy cooking. So I'm happy to share that with other people. So there'll be some other posts and pictures and any updates and those things. So people can always Facebook message me.
What's the Facebook page?
So it's called Baird's Kitchen.
Okay.
On Facebook, and I think that's the URL, facebook.com/Baird's Kitchen.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.